This take two. Hey, good old technology. Welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. I am excited about our discussion today because it is something that is close to my heart, has affected me, has affected our family, and probably millions of other people out there. And we are launching our Thriving Mind Empowering Innovators course tomorrow, which is going to be partnered with Collectively Tangled, Platform Calgary, the government. And it is a mental wellness course for entrepreneurs. So you'll get to come there. You'll get to open up. We'll have one-on-one sessions. We're very excited about launching this, and it's going to be every month for the next 6 months after this. But today, two of my favorite topics, mental health, and we're going to be talking about sports. As you can see in my background, I've got Caitlin Rudy's shirt on, More Good Days. And, Paula and Jessica of Hone, how are you today?
Very well.
Yeah, well, awesome to be here. I'm looking at all those jerseys behind you and wondering if we're working with any of those teams.
Well, I guess, that'll be, I hope you are.
Yeah.
You're getting into some of them. I think going to like where I went to high school in Notre Dame would be a good place to start and talking to them.
Yeah, I think we're working with them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
That school changed my life, and I love everything about it. But I want to dive in because we're going to have such a good conversation, and obviously mental health is such a huge issue in today's society, not only in athletics but in the work life that we'll talk about. So again, I can't state this as much as I want to say this. I love what you're doing, and let's talk a little bit about how it created, why you created Hone.
Yeah, for sure. We're stoked to be here, Jade. So really excited to be talking about Hone and some of the work we're doing. Both Paula and myself are certified Canadian psychotherapists and have been working specifically with athletes now for about 10 years from that mental health perspective. And before we launched Hone, and we launched it 15 days before COVID hit, so that's a fun little thing too. But before we launched Hone, we worked in person with many different teams around mental health, and think back 5-7 years ago, we weren't really talking about that as a society and as a culture. So Paula and I were fighting the good fight, and having those conversations. I think during a time we were a little bit ahead of our time in having those conversations, and it was really that R&D phase for us. We really got to understand what the athlete was experiencing, what they needed, and how the coach could be a part of that. So fast forward 5 years, and we launched Hone Athletics, and it's been quite a journey.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Is there anything that you can add to that, Paula?
I think one of the coolest things, and Jess said, felt like we were a little bit ahead of our time, which is a really cool place to be, but can also be a pretty challenging place to be.
Yeah.
But one of the things that stood out to us most is that when we walked in to meet with our first group of athletes, that they were so open to having a conversation. They wanted to talk about emotions. They wanted to talk about how they felt. And they wanted us to listen and hear them. And that in itself was unreal. It was incredible. It made us really want to go down this path and this avenue with athletes.
So I guess, what was, let's talk about the athlete side of this first. Why did you figure that would be, as somebody, there's probably that stigma. I'm going to guess that, again, I've always considered myself a high-end athlete. I still consider myself, even though I know I'm not, but
I stopped considering myself years ago. I don't gotta get
but everybody assumes that they're just mentally strong, and that they're the role models, and they don't have breakdowns, and they're just well-oiled machines. So let me talk about that side of the business, as you kind of wanted to focus on the athlete side.
Yeah. I think you just said mentally strong. I think we're all mentally strong.
Really?
But I think what's happened in that little world of sport is that it's been defined in some really interesting ways of not being emotional, not feeling our stuff, and putting all of that behind us. And we just can't do it. It's not realistic to expect that from people and expect that from athletes. So I kind of went on a tangent there.
I agree with your tangent.
Yeah, thanks.
And you can have both.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I think it's allowing our athletes in our culture and our world of sport to have both. You can be mentally tough and mentally strong and have mental health concerns, right? So, really shifting that narrative and incorporating both of those things into that narrative so our athletes feel like whole humans, not just a part of the performance wheel or just we're just developing their physicality. We want to ensure that we're also allowing them to be all of who they are so they can go out and perform to their capacity.
Jessica used to always say, it seems a little bit shocking because she used to always say, athletes are quite an underserved population when it comes to mental health. And oftentimes we see athletes that's not how we relate to sport as there's lots of advantages to that and to being part of that. But it's true when it comes to mental health, that hasn't, they're doing a really nice job now, opening that door, but it was pretty closed for a little while.
Yeah, and maybe there's that stigma that they get that help already because they have a coach or a manager, whatever sport you play, that gets taken care of. But I mean, as we all know, that's not the case.
No. And look at the message as athletes, all of us, some former, some continuing, as athletes, you're taught to be tough. You're taught to push through, and those are the things that are drilled into us. And get past stuff, keep going. And so to think about the mental health side of that and have that message that that's how we're supposed to be as athletes, that's pretty confusing.
Yeah, totally. And even in just like in our private practice, Jade, Paula and I, and we have a team who we meet with individual athletes, individually. We'll talk a little bit more about the app and how that's a team approach, but we do offer services for the individual. And I'm not sure how many times, Paula, I think like 98% of the time when they come and talk to us, it's never about performance, ever. It's always about, how they might be managing some of the stressors that they're feeling, how we can support them in responding and coping in a way that feels good for them. So I think, that too, right? Getting that message and that word out that, hey, like we need to be paying attention to this from a wellness perspective. And that's linked to performance. I mean, we know that the research is there, but ensuring that we're taking care of people first, and then allowing and asking and teaching them to be incredible athletes in addition to that.
I love that you said they're people first because I mean they have the same stresses as a person living across the street does, probably with family, with work, with kids, with maybe bills or whatever it may be, or that I have to make it. This is my if I'm not making it, what am I going to do? Is my life over? Those types of things that probably run through their mind, and then you throw on the fact that I'm not having, if I'm, in college or things like that, I'm having 15, 18, maybe even football, 100,000 fans potentially booing me because I dropped the ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so much like schoolwork on top of that, and trying to maintain your relationships, trying to be a good son or daughter or friend or girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever it might be, and the scheduling and knowing, having received a message that if you share that you're struggling, that there could be consequences.
Oh, absolutely. So, when you're approaching an organization, whether it be like a Notre Dame or maybe if you want to share some of your clients, I would love for that if you feel comfortable doing it. What do you see during these conversations that you're having with big major universities or small little club teams?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do span, from that grassroots level. We're a multi-sport platform, so we work with all different kinds of sports. So we span from, that grassroots level all the way up to those professional leagues. And so, I think it's important that we understand, obviously those conversations look different, but they're the same because, we're talking about people. and we're talking about people who are in addition to people, they're incredible athletes. And I think the conversation has really shifted, Jade, from what was happening 4 years ago to now, and the world of sport has certainly taken notice and taken note of the need to not only be supporting our athletes from an individual perspective, but also how the culture plays into that. And that's a really key difference in how we talk to athletes. We always say, we're a platform from sport for sport. All of the research and everything that went into this was sport specific. And that's really important because the narrative for athletes is different than the narrative for non-athletes. When we talk about stigma, when we talk about, they're not saying anything and why aren't they saying anything? So I think the world of sport has acknowledged that we need to be doing something, and that needs to be happening. And a lot of the conversations we have and what we find, really draws people to us is that cultural team approach. When we look at and when we really dig into how we shift the individual when it comes to athletics, it is about addressing the team. We ask our athletes to win together, to lose together, to train together. But we're going to ask them to do mental health on their own? It doesn't work.
No, I so agree. I mean, I think that's even transferable into the entrepreneur world, because it's more like the athletic world than the regular world. Like the ordinary is as a Jade Alberts is a person going to talk to my psychologist type thing, right? Like I think there are some comparables there. And again, I'm talking with Jessica and Paula, the founders of Hone Athletics. You can just go to their website, honeathletics.com. It's in the comment section. Click on it. It'll take you directly there. And you can reach out to them from there. Yeah. So I just want to dive in a little more with the on the athlete side, because I think the synergies with that in entrepreneurs, where you just have that extra level of maybe something that you're scared to share. Like you're scared to say, you know what, I'm scared of failing, or maybe I am failing, and I am looking at this. And I remember, with me working in the Dub for so long, and a gentleman, I won't drop his name, he ended up playing in the NHL. And one of the Dallas, he was in an interview with the Dallas Stars, and the gentleman was just, an unbelievable person and very, very honest. And when you ask he was asked, what's your biggest fear in hockey, right? Like what scares you? And most people are like, nothing scares me. I'm a guy, right? He goes, I'm scared to go into the corner. And basically he said, I only had 2 more questions after that, and the interview was over.
Yeah.
Because he was vulnerable and honest. And he said something that was like, oh my God, like we don't want this guy in our organization. Maybe he's a chicken shit, whatever, right? Even though he was good enough to play in the NHL.
Yeah. Made them probably feel vulnerable.
Right. So
you said something.
I think that synergy is there when people are scared to share their what's troubling them as an entrepreneur, because they'll be looked as a failure.
When you said that, I quite seriously, I don't know that I've ever made the comparison before. And when you said it, I was thinking, okay, how would I see the similarities of like an athlete's approach and real dug deep real quick and thought like, oh, you don't want to let people down. Right? You want them to believe in what you're doing. You want them to believe in you. And is there an element of like, if I fail, or if I kind of like, I'm too stressed right now or whatever, but from that entrepreneur world, like there's too much going on, but you need to have, like, thankfully Jess and I are doing this together. Cause I can be like, Jess, I'm tired today, or I feel a lot of pressure today, and it be all right. But I know I'm safe to do that. But to be an athlete who may not feel safe, or to be entrepreneuring on your own, to share that with people outside of that experience, I think it might be a little scary.
Risky. Feels
risky.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Huge similarities. And I think too, that's what, when we talk about athletics and our strategy in, working with athletics, obviously a lot of it comes from in here for us. And a lot of it also is, wanting to, and seeing that there was so many other subgroups that this would apply to. And we're starting to see all the applicability with those subgroups, and how this also, this isn't just about athletes. This is about supporting our people in those cultures where those stakes are very, very high.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely. And again, Rocky, thanks for your comments here in LinkedIn talking about, sometimes it's very hard to be an athlete. It's hard you just can't take a textbook. You can't take and learn it, right? I mean, it's lived experiences. And again, which is, I think, going into what's scrolling on the bottom is that, having those people it'd be like having you two sitting there with Sarah and Kira, but then you have me, Mo, Pete, and Kyle sitting there that have taken a lot of punches in the face in entrepreneurship and is like pretty much have seen everything that needs to be seen. And now it's time to share that knowledge and having that from an athletic point of view. And exactly what you said, that fear of failure and fear of saying, I'm letting you down, or coming home to your wife or your husband or your partner and saying, hey, like it's hard to say that I'm failing.
Mhm.
It is. And I don't even know if I think sometimes we don't say it, but we show it, like our behaviors or our, or whatever is showing that fear. And I think, that's what when we're talking about working with our leaders and our coaches, you really helping them understand that they might not say that to you, but here's what it might look like, or here's how you can create a culture within that dressing room where those athletes feel safe and feel like they can be feeling those things and don't have to hide it away.
So do you find that, again, I'm talking such a good conversation, talking with Paul and Jessica, the founders of Hone, and there's a few comments in the LinkedIn I've tagged you in that you're going to have to, maybe go and look at and give some feedback to. But, when you said that fear, like it is something that is real, and it's hard to dive into that. Like it is hard to ask for help. And I think even maybe as an athlete, I don't know, is there a level, and again, I'm going to say this I've seen this for entrepreneurs, because I don't want to use the word stubborn. Maybe it's just the way the world makes it.
Driven.
Stubborn at all. Don't ask anyone around us if you're stubborn.
Yeah, no.
Exactly. Maybe I'm just talking about myself. I don't know. Right. But, do you see, once you kind of get into these organizations, that guard is let down a little bit because they're like, okay, I've got something, here it is. I can open up.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we want. That's what we're trying to do. We've approached this from a cultural standpoint where let's create those cultures of wellness. Let's create those spaces where people feel okay to let that guard down, and where people feel safe to do that and know that they can reach out for help if they need it. But also that space is going to be a place that they go that feels good.
And I love, I think, Paula, what I love about Hone and what I love about kind of how we're doing this is we're not expecting the athlete to come forward and say, I need help, because the reality is they don't. It's not safe. So instead of beating our head against the wall and saying, how do we get our athletes to do this? Why don't we change the environment around them so that they can do that? Right? Like really looking at this from a sustainable root problem rather than the individual being the problem. You know what I mean? Like, entrepreneurs, I'll switch it back to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs aren't going to maybe ask for help, but how do we create an ecosystem around them where A, they might not need to, and B, they can if they feel safe to do it. So really looking at that environment around the athlete or the entrepreneur.
No, absolutely right. And again, it's that stigma around athletes, right? Again, I'm talking with Jessica and Paula, founders of Hone, honeathletics.com. Just click on it. The website in the comments section, it'll take you directly there. So I want to talk a little bit more about, how your app works and how it works in an organization, and your tagline, like, let's put mental health in the game. So let's, how, like, you're coming in, you're going to talk to an organization, how does the process work?
Yeah, so it's quite simple. Paula
That's our
and
jam.
despite owning a tech company, newsflash, we have a hard time getting on Zoom sometimes. So here we go. But we wanted to ensure that we were creating something for the culture of we're busy. Everyone's busy. So to make it really simple was hugely important to us. And when an organization comes on, it's seamless in the sense that we take on a lot of kind of the administrative duty and putting teams in and coaches in. And once that happens, once a week, our athletes are asked a series of questions, 6 different questions that we know impact athlete mental health. So very specific to athletics. And those results are anonymously sent to the coach. So the coach has a better understanding of how his or her team is doing from that mental health perspective, and can make those strategic coaching decisions or coaching plays based on also having that information.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'll jump to the word I love that we always hear a lot about. It's anonymous. Mm-hmm. So that was very purposeful, because we want the information to be shared. I don't like to say honestly, but comfortably. And so they can share where they're at. And then we don't need to know who the individuals are.
No.
We need to know what this environment is. And then we can start addressing that environment. And we do see those individual scores increase once that environment is taken care of.
Yeah.
And I think that anonymity is so important, right? And because I don't think, maybe the coach is a problem, right? Let's throw it out there. There can be very lots of variables, but if he gets there and says, "Oh my God, Jade Albert, oh my God, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you thinking this? Like, shake it off, right?
Yeah.
Like,
or we're trading you. I don't want to deal."
Yeah.
Right, exactly, right. Like, so I think I think that is so important. That, I mean, not only, you're only as healthy as your, I say this to entrepreneurs all the time. You're only as healthy as you are. Your company's only as healthy as their leader. And that's the same for any sports organization as well.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And allowing, and I think what we saw during those R&D days was we saw coaches, we saw leaders wanting to, like, they just didn't know what to do, right? Mm-hmm. We would have do our group with the athletes, and then an hour after, coaches would call us and say, "Okay, what do I do?" Mm-hmm. So, as much as we were giving time and space to our athletes, which is tremendously important, we also needed to give time and space to our leaders and to our coaches to help them understand, or help walk beside them in addressing this. Quite frankly, that's what it is, Jade. Mm-hmm. It's walking beside someone and showing up for them and saying, like, "Hey, this matters to you, and therefore it matters to me." The capacity for an individual to shift when we see them, hear them, when we say, "Hey, what you're saying matters to me," it's incredible.
No, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I know we spent a lot of time talking about your athletic side, as that's kind of launched, what you guys have done and the great work that you're doing. And again, anybody wants more information, click on the honeathletics.com link in the website, take you directly there. So you also you have a work-life side of it. So why don't you touch base on that a little bit?
Sure. We through athletics, we kind of had a hunch that this could fit in many, many different spaces, but a lot of people started asking us, is there kind of a corporate entity to this? And we decided to dive into the research. As Jessica said, we were very, very conscious about research sport, building our sport app for sport. So we gave the same attention to home work life, and really looked at what the stressors are that people are feeling in the workplace, how they're impacting them. And maybe not surprisingly, the types of stressors that showed up were quite similar. What was different was everything behind it. So we're all dealing with basically the similar stress, but however it's showing up for us, or whatever is impacting it, looks a little bit different. And really kind of saw how we could support those leaders in the workplace community, and the people that are working there, and it's being received quite well.
Yeah. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about the partnership that we have ongoing with the University of Calgary. They saw the athletic app. The pediatric neurosurgical department saw the athletic app, and we're looking for innovative ways to support their residents. And as we know, unfortunately, neurosurgeons and dentists actually have two of the high suicide rates when it comes to workplace, when it comes to kind of professions in the workplace. So the neurosurgeons, we signed a partnership with them. We are about 6 months in to that partnership, and they're using the WorkLife app and seeing, I don't want to speak for them, but seeing kind of tremendous results in how we're approaching and how Hone is approaching the team rather than solely focusing on the individual. So seeing really, really good stuff, and they're eager to start putting staff in, which is always a great thing too.
And that makes total sense. I mean, kind of, how I didn't want to lump them athletes and entrepreneurs together, but I think there are a lot of synergies. I think there are a lot of things when you're working with somebody like a neurosurgeon community or any other, work-life team that's out there that has the same, they are a team. I mean, there's really, there's probably more similarities, I'm sure, once you started diving into the analytics.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's our, we can't deny our culture, right? We can't deny those environments that we're in and who's leading those environments and what are they setting up. And culture is going to happen. So are you going to be an active participant in that and what we're setting up? Because it's going to make a massive difference for your athletes and for your teams and your employees.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So I want to know, what's next for, what's next for Hone? Like, if you want to talk about, either your athletics and work life separately or, where are you going? What's your short term, maybe, 1 year goals within the company and maybe your, 5 to 10 year goal?
Yeah. Well, we're going to change the world. Jade, is that what everyone comes on here and says? Yeah.
I'm pumped about that.
So here's how we're going to do it. We can talk about athletics and then I'll jump over to work life, but we are seeing significant traction. We have seen it since the beginning, which is great. This year we are seeing differences where whole entire leagues are coming on. We can talk about the CSSHL, OHL, CJHL, lots of leagues really wanting a better understanding of how their entire group can come on to the app. So that's wonderful and fantastic. We'll also be kind of working with our first not pro team, but teams that are in the back of your
advertising back there for us.
Yeah, I think you did that purposefully. He's gonna turn around now and be like, "Who is it?" So we'll be doing that, which is fantastic, and really launching kind of our performance indicator at the same time, which is how is wellness and performance correlated, and how can we be using wellness to unlock another performance angle in that capacity. So that's really, really exciting to us. And then on the work life side, really. Again, we've gone a little bit, I would say, slower in the sense that really making sure that we were meeting the needs of what was happening in that culture or what was out there. They're wanting to make sure that if there was differences between athletics and corporate, that we knew what they were. And we're seeing really, really awesome stuff in kind of obviously the healthcare vertical, also the education vertical, and the corporate vertical as at large as well. So we're really excited kind of about what we're seeing and feel like we've taken our product and our service to a place where we can now start to look at our capital strategy, what that is. We have proven concept. So going to, that investor community or going to that world and saying, hey, this is what we had, this is what we've done. Let's pour some gas on this.
Oh, I mean, I think it's so needed, right? Like I have so many conversations with entrepreneurs and even to the point where I've actually had to go to the mental health community and ask, what should I say as somebody who puts himself out there, when someone brings up suicide or someone brings up, this is what, I thought I was doing the right thing, but I wanted to make sure that I verified, not to give the wrong and, send him. And again, more listening than anything, is there, never any advice, and try and guide him in the right way. So having what you guys are doing out there, it's just absolutely, needed. And especially in the athletes world. And as a coach, I remember like coaching back in Saskatoon, Bantam AAA and midget AAA, and I'm 20, 21, 22, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table and having discussions with kids about drugs and alcohol. And yet I was having problems with them myself. And those kids were looking up to me, and because I was a non-parent coach and I wasn't ready for that personally. And having something like this out there for teams and to be, it's so important.
Yeah. We think so too. Thank you.
And it's let's not overcomplicate it. Like it lead with kindness. Like we don't have to have the answers. We don't have to fix. In fact, it's not really coach's responsibility to fix. Support, be kind, listen, right? Just hear them and provide that space.
I know. And I mean, it's coach's job to get wins. And I mean, if I'm a coach, and again, I would want to make sure that my athlete is so prepared and so ready, and then mental health is such a big part of that I would be behind it 1,000%. That's not a real number, but.
And it's
go ahead, Jess.
Far more sustainable, right? So I want to win too. We want to win too. Our teams win. So it's important to say that, and we're winning, just not at all costs. And we're seeing sustainability. We're seeing programs, win championships over and over and over again, rather than that kind of one hit wonder. And that has a lot to do with making sure that our athletes are supported and feel supported, and our programs feel supported. It's just a far more sustainable approach to winning.
And we're going to see healthier athletes 5 years from now.
Yep. It puts a big smile on my face. That's awesome, right? Yeah. So many kids look up to athletes, right? And if an athlete can say, you know what, I asked for help, I was right. I mean, that 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old is going to say, oh my God, like that person asked, like they said they were having, like, I mean, it's just going to cycle down.
Absolutely. And I think to when we started kind of with Hone 5 years ago, or when we started working with athletes, and we had one group in particular who stuck with us for several years. And then we would kind of look at them and see the newer teams, and the difference in, like, I don't know if I would call it emotional intelligence or whatever we were seeing was evident from their few extra years of living in this space where we talk about mental health and where we talk about how we feel.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, I could have this conversation for another half an hour. Like it's something I'm going to be talking about it for 2 hours tomorrow, right? With, we thought we would, and we thought that we would have 25 people sign up, 25 entrepreneurs sign up, and that was done in 2 days. And we're about 57, 58. So it shows the need, even in the entrepreneurial community for that mental wellness support and help and somebody to talk to. So I want to change the last question a little bit on, and you know what, maybe if each one of you want to tackle something different on it, but one athletic, maybe one on the work life side. So if you had one piece of advice for a person to take that first step forward to ask for help, what would that be? Jessica, you can go first. I saw you looking, so you were like, I
was thinking. One piece of advice for someone to come forward. I think I'm going to this place of, like, I think whatever, not work life, not athletic. I think I'm just going to a place of just humans. And I think, people that exist in these cultures, or these like high performing cultures, or the requirement for someone to be high performing, I think we're always wanting to prove people wrong. And I think that's a huge motivating factor. this is totally me. Like when someone tells me I can't do something, I'm like, cool, watch me. And I love that about myself. I think that's awesome, but there's a shadow side to that, right? And so in the last year or so, it's really been about proving my believers right and proving the people who believed in us right. So I think when we're coming at it from that vantage point, when we're coming at it from a place of like, you know, I can show myself, I can show who I am, I'm way more likely to show like, this is really hard and I don't know how to do this or whatever. When I'm in a place where I'm trying to prove everybody wrong, I'm not asking anyone, right? Because I'm worried about how they're going to see me. So for me, and I think a lot of what we see in these worlds is about kind of like being grounded in who you are and proving the people who believe in you right.
I love it. I love it. Paula?
I'm like, what was the question again?
There's just one piece of advice for for a person who wants to come out and ask for help. What should they do?
I really, really think people are incredibly smart and incredibly in tune, and people know, you know who's there, you know the safe people, because we do a really beautiful job of testing people and checking them out. And I think trust that, and they are there. And you might know that this person might not be this person, but they're there. The person that you can reach out to. It's scary. And it's okay.
Yeah.
And it makes me emotional to think of people struggling to find that person or to find somebody to support them, but they are there.
No,
And
absolutely.
we're here. Reach out to us. If nothing else.
We talk about that on, like we're a supportive ecosystem. And again, this might have been the first episode I thought we might go without actually talking about it, but here we are. There's lots of people to ask for help, and there's lots of, not only people, but organizations that are there for you. So, I love it. I love this conversation. I love what you girls are doing. Thank you so much for being out there helping people with their mental health. Like it is so needed in our ecosystem and in our world that, I'm always going to be supporting, what you do, trying to open up doors for you, because it's just wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, for anybody else that wants any more information, just go to honeathletics.com, click on the link in the comments section. Again, if you're interested, we've got, I think till like 6 o'clock today to sign up for our Empowering Innovators course, Mental Wellness for Entrepreneurs. And again, Jessica, Paula, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to our next conversation and getting a t-shirt. More good days. We want more good days.
That works.
All right. We will enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and we will chat soon.